Hey everyone, my name is Tonya Meisenbach, and I am now better known as Burn Beauty 2018. Um, the first video I ever made for social media was a YouTube video, and I don't know what the date was, but it was 2021, and it's about 20 minutes long, and I haven't watched it since I recorded it. But in that video, I was telling about what happened to me that I thought was an accident at the time. And I was pretty smitten with the fact that I had turned pain into purpose and that my marriage was better. I thought that it's going to be hard. It's a hard video to make. I thought that the accident had happened and that he was now going to be the husband I'd always wanted for the 15 years prior, because he was a terrible, terrible husband. He was a terrible boyfriend. He was terrible everything. And by terrible, I mean not mean or violent, but just turn off the phone, disappear. We're at the strip club. We're out, probably out with, I know, hookers and other women, and doing drugs, and just, I didn't do drugs. It's just a lot. I get tongue-tied thinking about it. But let's get into it. If you're new here, please be sure to subscribe. I'm going to get ready for my Saturday while I tell my story, because I'm getting late in the day and I was starting to make excuses like I'll do it tomorrow because I need to get ready, and I don't need any more excuses. So please subscribe, and I'm just going to do some things. It's not a tutorial. I'm just getting ready for the day. So I guess I'll start where I start, which is 2004. I had just gotten divorced from my first husband. We were in a nasty custody battle. My first husband had taken custody. He was much older than I was, about 20 years older, and he just whatever. That was sort of a regular bad marriage, Just, it's over. And we're in a custody battle, and I was really very weak about that. I was beaten. And I met Donald. So I met him in 2004, and as with most people who I'm looking online that are defined as narcissists, they go very quickly. Like within a month, we're just so in love and he wants to live with me. Well, he wants to live with me because he has nowhere else to go, because he's gone and gotten a puppy that his friend doesn't want in the house and has told him he needs to get rid of the puppy or he needs to start paying a certain amount of rent that he didn't have, because he was just bumming on his best friend too, just kind of living for free. So the reason I say that is because I knew that was the case even then. But he made it out to be that, he wanted to be with me and I wanted to be loved, and it's just the way it goes down, just the way it was. I was 31 at the time, and I'd already been married and divorced and had 2 kids because I got married so young. And so, really, it was just bad from the beginning, just him disappearing and seeing his ex-girlfriend, and I had to go give her something. I mean, just things that are sketchy, right? So that whole thing goes on for years and years. I marry him 5 years later. No reason to marry this person. The first year that we lived together, he gave me a total of $200 to go towards the bills. And we went out once, and he had told me that, we needed to get home because he needed money to spend on the bachelor party he was supposed to attend that weekend. Didn't want to buy me dinner. I'm giving you these examples because it's important to know that they're not harmless. They are devaluing you. And when you accept them, you are allowing that devaluing. And when I say allowing, I don't mean like it's your fault. I know it's not my fault. I've had to work that out. But I didn't have the self-esteem and self-love to say, what, are you kidding me? Get out of here. All right? You can't, I'm paying the bills struggling, got kids, you're a grown man, and you sit at home all day, supposedly running a home business, but in reality, just surfing dating sites. And I mean, he's just I don't want to get into that part because I want it to be about me. But looking back on it, he's just a pig. And that's why I'm going to leave that there because I don't need that in my heart. I don't need it. So all the years pass by, and I'm being devalued more and more with gaslighting. Oh my gosh, my eye is so irritated right now. So sorry. That's a weird thing to put into this type of video, but I'm just going to keep this as real as you and I just having a conversation, and my eye is really bothering me. We'll get to why and, what's been done to my face. If you don't know me, we'll get to that, and I'm going to speed this up. Because you can kind of guess the stuff, all the BS and gaslighting, that's textbook stuff. These guys they're not different. They're doing the same kind of jerky stuff. The main thing he did to me would be just turning off his phone and disappearing all night. And he would mainly do that if I was upset about something else. Like, hey, who's calling you? Hey, what are you doing? Hey, where were you all day? You get the silent treatment. Literally a silent treatment if he were at home with his bottom lip stuck out like a 3-year-old. If you see things like this, you need to beware. These are signs. I thought he was joking, but he was really actually very unwell. Like very much back into his childhood trauma. Literally the bottom lip sticking out and won't talk to you. And I was like, haha, because no, it was real. I didn't think so. But that was the main thing he did to me. Like I had these abandonment issues already because my grandparents had raised me from birth. My mother was young when she had me and didn't want to have a baby. So my grandma and grandpa raised me from birth, even though they were 60 years old at the time I was born. So I had these abandonment issues, and he knew that. I'd opened up to him. I've told him everything about myself. And he uses every bit of that against me. I wasn't the same person for all those years. I was anxious. I was drinking. I was screaming. I felt like life wasn't livable. But he made me believe that that was because something was wrong with me. Like, you're crazy. Like, I don't think I am, you know? We all have our issues. The word crazy, we all have our issues. But I don't think that that's what's happening. But I would still believe it because he would just feed into that. He would do something wrong and say, get over it. You can't keep bringing it up. Well, I'm bringing it up because you're still lying about it. Plus, you say it's the past, and it'd be like yesterday, When is the past? So it made me believe that, it's okay with everybody else. All these catchwords, if you hear them, it's okay with everybody else. Why can't you just get over it? You're crazy. And really, he's judging me for my opinion to the things he did. So I'm going to leave that groundwork right there. So we got married. We renewed our vows every 5 years. And the last vow renewal was in November of 2018, a month before he set me on fire. The year before, in February, we had had a disagreement. He had disappeared. And when he got home, he ran his car into mine. And I have the video of that. We had surveillance footage. I called the police. He was arrested. I didn't give them the surveillance footage because I ended up telling them it was my fault. He was like, I didn't mean to hit you. And look, you called the police and got me in trouble and yada, yada, yada. I hired an attorney, got him out. And I regret that so much right now because I feel like if they had just punished him, this wouldn't have happened to me. But I'm not here to control a madman. Um, they did charge him with 2 counts of aggravated battery, and they did that because they were looking at his record and seeing that he was a registered sex offender in Florida who had pled no contest to the charges of physically sexual battery of a physically helpless victim being, I don't know, sleeping, drugged, I don't know. Um, but they saw that, and the attorneys couldn't really talk to me, even though I paid them. He was the client. But at any rate, I got him out. A few months later, we were in San Francisco at his friend's wedding, and he was being a bozo as usual. Go out, get drunk, start acting a fool, hitting on women, and just being unsavory. I wanted to leave because we were also there for our anniversary of the day we met, and I wanted to leave because we were driving um, out the next morning to go celebrate our stuff, and he ended up punching me in the eye so hard that my eyes were red, and I didn't know what to do. I was so beaten by that time. That was 2017. I didn't think I could get on a plane by myself. I didn't have any money of my own. I had quit my job and started working for the tree company that he had started. Um, I don't know what I felt, but I didn't do anything except get back on the plane and come home a couple of days later. Um, so when we renewed our vows in November of 2018, on the last night we were there, we went to the French Alps and spent the last nights in Geneva. He literally, 2 days after we renewed our vows, disappears like he always does. Phone's off, and he's out drinking and partying in Geneva. Comes home at like 4 or 5 a.m., so drunk he doesn't know what's going on. Drunk and high. Saying pussy, pussy, pussy. And pardon my French if I don't normally speak like that publicly, but that's what he was saying when he got back to the hotel. When I was like, what are you doing? And where have you been? So I was pretty pissed. And we argued for the weeks following that. That was November 17th of 2018. My burns were on December 18th. So if you look at my text messages, we were arguing a lot those few weeks, and I was calling him out. The kids had just moved out for college, and it was just me and him in the house, and I had got my real estate license so that I could have my independence back, and I just started having my sign in people's yards. And I was so depressed, and I had a listing that wasn't working out, and I wasn't even communicating with my seller. She ends up messaging me and saying, just take the listing down. This is right before the night I got burned. We were doing nothing but arguing all day, every day. On December 16th, 2018, he stayed out all night because I was done with him. I was like, get out. He had a girlfriend the whole time. Some little, crack girl that I didn't want to believe it, but I know it was true now, in retrospect. Just some real, little cheap, if you give me drugs, I'll be with you kind of person. And I guess he stayed with her. I don't know. I didn't care. Looking back at the text receipts and email, I had turned my phone off or blocked him and enjoyed my night in the house or gone out. I don't know what I did on December 16th, but I know that he emailed me telling me to answer him, and he would only do that when I had blocked him, which I would just do because he would turn off his phone, disappear. So, you don't have any right to call me. So that was December 16th. December 17th, the message is, I'm coming home. I'm not spending another night away from you, baby. And that's fine. He comes home December 18th. During the day, I'm still not trusting him. I'm starting to realize right there, all his lies are lies. And I'm tired of him. It's been 15 years at that point. I'm just tired. And when you read the text, you can see it. And on that day, a former employee of his who was also a drug guy, I thought these people were providing like marijuana, but in reality, they were providing things much worse, like really illicit drugs like heroin and cocaine. And I didn't know that until recently, but anyway, I don't even smoke marijuana. So I didn't like it because it's illegal, have kids in the house. I don't appreciate it. Oh, my eye is so bad. I don't know what's in it. I'm not going to edit this video either. I'm just going to put it up when I'm done so that there's no reason for it not to get done today. So anyway, we're arguing about it, and I've been putting him to task, and he's frustrated. He's probably been out drugging, if that guy was calling him. And that just occurred to me right now. He's probably out just drugging. Because apparently he had a very severe heroin and methamphetamine problem the whole time. And I'm so blind and suppressive, and I don't want to beat myself up. It's not our fault when bad people do bad things, but I just wasn't willing to see any of it. And I can see it now. I hate that part. So on December 16th at 5:43 p.m. was the last argumentative text that I sent to him. And it was the last text because he got home. And I remember him getting home and saying, let's go outside and sit by the fire pit and talk. And I bought this fire pit for him. I think I said in the last video, I bought it for him the year before because he loves fire so much. Now, hold on to that thought. That's going to be important later. He's been building fires the whole time I've known him, obsessively, just sitting and staring at them. So I bought him the fire pit. We go out and we sit by it, and that was 5:43 p.m. Between 5:43 and 6 is when he got home. And at 8:09 p.m. was the 911 call that I had been burned. He made that call. I remember telling him to call after he put me out. He put me out because I made it to the side of the house. We were in the back of the house when this started. And I made it to the side, and I think it was too risky. Let me back up so I keep it in order. So we talked that night. I don't remember what the argument was, but obviously it was enough that he was done or not feeling like, I don't know, he's just angry. He's like a child, just temper tantrums, just a basic sociopathic narcissist. And that's not diagnosed by anybody other than me, right? And the research I've done and reading, but he certainly presents like what they say it is. I was going to make a steak. I remember my daughter came by. I remember laughing at whatever she said. And then I was going to make that steak. And then I don't know why he set me on fire, except that he's effing crazy. But I ran. At that point, I don't know how intentional it was, but as I ran, he chased me, squirting the lighter fluid. And I ran down the house, and when I got to the corner, I had to turn the corner. It's like I was trying to make it to my car in the driveway. I don't know what I was going to do, but that's what I had in my mind. You're panicking. And when I got to that corner, I looked back and I said no, because I had this long extensions in, really long, like down to my bottom. And when I turned that corner, he had been squirting the lighter fluid the whole way. And I looked back and said no, and he threw a Zippo at me. And I know it was the Zippo. It was red it was the Swiss flag. We had just bought it in Geneva a month before. He threw that thing at me, and that's when the flames went. That's the part of the memory that was messed up. I remembered this stuff last year. If you're wondering that part, I've known for a while, but I've been told that I couldn't say anything until I got to safety because he would certainly harm me to shut me up. and hold that thought too, because that's going to come back into play in a minute too. Yeah, so the flames went up, and I remember praying. I thought that, this is how I died. And I prayed. And now that thought, this is how I died, makes so much more sense because there was no reason to expect him to help me. Now, I don't know if he helped me truly because I had made it to the corner of the house and made a lot of noise where the neighbors might have heard, and he might need to, cover his cover his behind on that. Or if he did it because I was praying, because I was saying the Lord's Prayer. And I think I was saying it out loud because I did stop and I asked God, if this was really the way my life was supposed to end. And that's when my husband said, "I've got you, baby, I've got you." In that moment, the person who just set me on fire is calling me baby. Like he's going to fix it for me. Like it was just a little mix up. Like he didn't just run 100 feet squirting lighter fluid at me and then throwing a Zippo. So he did put me out, and I remember telling him to dial 911. And I didn't realize until this year, reading the paramedics report, that there was soot to my nose was burned off, and my hair was melted to my head. What was left, I had human hair extensions. They had burned off. I remember smelling them burn and smelling flesh burning. They had burned off down to the tracks that are synthetic, and that had melted to my head. I think they tried to blame these burns on that I was wearing synthetic hair extensions, but I was wearing human hair. And the only reason they burned was because of the excess amount of lighter fluid in them, because human hair behaves very differently than a synthetic. Just because they saw melting at the root, well, that was the tracks. Don't assume that every brown lady has, synthetic hair in. I had $1,000 worth of human hair in. And it was only the third time I'd ever gotten a weave in my life. I was doing it so I could grow out my natural hair. I had long hair underneath. It was all burned. And they took me to the hospital. No, wait. The police didn't do anything. The policeman came, and I was standing on the driveway, and I was telling Donald to tell the kids I love them. Tell Rodman I love them. I don't want to say my kid's name. Tell my family I love them. And I remember doing that, and I remember asking if I was going to die, And the paramedics report says that I not only just asked it once, but I continued to say that I was going to die. I'm going to die. And if you ask any paramedics, usually when people say that, they do. We know when we're about to go. They saved me. They did a great job. But the policeman, when he got there, he only asked Donald what happened. And Donald told him, there's a few different accounts of it if you look between the police report and the paramedic, what he told the paramedic and what he told the hospital. But I think the original report was that there was a stream of lighter fluid. The paramedic reported that he said he set down the bottle of lighter fluid and it exploded. It took him a few tries to work out the story in his mind under pressure. But the policeman just made a note that there were copious amounts of wine bottles, because I used to drink all these. That's embarrassing, but I used to drink these little bottles of Barefoot Pinot Grigio and just throw them in the trash out there on the patio. I must have knocked it over or just made a mess with it. Half the time I'd have them on the ground. So I was a mess. I don't even want to get into that, but still, that there was that and maybe four cans of lighter fluid that he saw. But it was just an accident, that he said we'd been drinking. He smelled alcohol. Husband says it was an accident. Injuries consistent with a flare up. Like a poof flare, like you singed your arm hair off, except he notes that I had third-degree burns and was going to Grady. But I was telling him that I loved him repeatedly and made no allegation of wrongdoing. I don't know how to describe what it's like to be set on fire and the pain and the shock that ensues, but you certainly need to follow up later. Maybe not in that moment. And I was definitely 100% telling him to convey to my family that I love them. And I was only interested in whether I was going to stay alive. So they closed the case within hours. They never asked him to come back. They never interviewed me, not once. Not that night, not after I woke up from the coma 2 months later. They never asked me what happened. They just observed and asked him. So really, I spent 2 months in a coma, trying to live with my attacker in the hospital room. The person who, if you just check the phone, was arguing at 5:43 p.m. and at 8:09 p.m., his wife is on fire, who was just out of the house with his girlfriend 2 nights before, who was just arrested the year before for aggravated battery, who is a convicted felon and on the sex offender registry in Florida, beside his wife, who doesn't even have a speeding ticket. But it feels like it didn't matter. And I'm speaking out about that because it's important that police do investigate and not just take his word for what happened. But all in all, I survived. I spent 2 months in a coma, 6 months in the hospital, and you know what? You can't keep me down. I learned to walk again. I learned to talk again. I had my entire face replaced and 35% of my upper body. I'm doing makeup now. I'm living my best life. He couldn't keep me down, and that's what he hates about me. He never loved me. These narcissists never loved you. They envy you. They hate you. They want to destroy you, but he never could. So now I see it so clearly, and it makes me so frustrated with myself. It's embarrassing, but I can't let my embarrassment spare him from being punished for what he's done to me. And I don't even know if he's harmed anybody else in the time we've been married, since he always disappeared. What was he doing when he was turning off his phone and disappearing for a night, hours, and sometimes 2 days he was gone? What was he doing? Was he hurting somebody? I just don't know. It's so scary to me. So after I woke up, I didn't know all this yet. I knew he was a jerk. He'd been disappearing for years. He hit me in the eye. He rammed my car. But when I woke up and he was kissing my face, telling me, I love you, I'm sorry, I just, I didn't mean to. It was, we were cooking out. It was an accident. And, spending 2 months without you, I'm so sorry. I've been such a jerk for all these years. I'm so sorry. I don't know what I would do without you. Basically everything I've been wanting to hear forever. Hey, I realize your value. I'm not going to be bad to you anymore. I'm going to be a good husband like you're a good wife to me. And I just wanted to believe it. And he fed me memories. He told me exactly what happened. I was so proud that when I made the video the first time that he had stayed with me every second and never left my side, but that was because he just wanted to make sure I didn't say anything or that nobody said anything to me. Because, he had been telling the people at the hospital that I'm unmedicated bipolar 1. All I was taking at the time was Wellbutrin. I was way beyond any bipolar diagnosis. It was anxiety and depression, and I was treated for it, but he always wanted it to be that I was crazy because I got upset when he did bad things. It wasn't the bad things that he did. It was my reaction to them that was wrong. I'm not supposed to react that way. It's not that big a deal. So he's been just feeding them lines of BS and telling slightly different stories. I have the medical records now, y'all. 8,000 pages of them. I have the police report now. I have the paramedics report. I have everything, and I want it reviewed because it's BS, and there's no way that his account of events leads to this. Impossible. Nobody cared. As far as the doctors at the hospital, after I was burned, I only have one close family member that I consider to be a brother in North Carolina. He's a cousin, but we grew up together. And my husband didn't even call him after I was burned. Not at all. He called my kids, but he didn't call my North Carolina family. And I was dying. There's a very good possibility I wasn't going to survive. He didn't call them. My daughter texted my cousin to tell him. My husband called his brother, who's a doctor in Florida, and his brother came up the day after Christmas. He left his family at home. He rarely gets time off, but he left his 4 kids and wife at home and came up because Donald was having trouble understanding what the doctors were saying. So he needed to come talk to them. And no additional reports were ever made. So, as I stated, I'm tough and I overcame everything. And I got home from the hospital and this man started stealing my pain medicine. Now, I didn't know it because I had a G tube in. I couldn't swallow at the time. I couldn't give myself medicine. I couldn't do anything. It had to be administered to me. It had to be grinded up and put in a tube in my tummy. And he was doing that. But he had to get a nurse after the first week. He had to go back and work. He fired the nurse, the first nurse I had, after a month. And now I realize it was because he had taken all the medication and he wasn't going to be able to explain it to her. You know, she was there with me all day, every day, administering the medicine. Where's all the oxycodone going? Where's all the Dilaudid for where's it all going? She's not taking it all, right? So he fires this nurse and leaves me at home. I'm not supposed to be at home alone. Leaves me at home a couple of days. Tells me that I'm out of medicine. This is the second time in the first month that I'm out of medicine. Okay? He tells me I'm out of medicine, and they would give me like 160 oxycodones plus Dilaudid. I was in a lot of pain. And he told me to contact my doctor to get more, like message them. So I message them and they call me and they say, Tonya, you should have like 60 or 80 more pills. We're not upset, but if you're taking that much pain medicine, we need to do something different. I was like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't give myself the medicine. So I asked him. He hesitates and he's like, oh, well, that's why I had to let Miss Sylvia go. I can say her name because the poor woman passed away from long COVID. And she was a dear, dear woman that got fired for no reason except he was stealing my pain medicine. He continued to steal it. You know, we went to the hospital for physical therapy, and he's all nervous and fidgeting around the whole place. And I'm like, oh, well, it's going to be painful after my physical therapy. So you brought my medicine. He's like, you're out of medicine. Like he's angry at me. Like, what did I take it all? He actually walked around that hospital until he found one of the doctors that had taken care of me when I was inpatient to write him a prescription saying that he hadn't had time to get pain management for me yet. So, like, if they checked the first month and a half I was out, he probably had my prescriptions filled 3 times. So he's just I think it takes a lot to harm someone and then steal their pain medicine, seeing how much pain they're in. Take it for yourself. I saw him with my own 2 eyes take it. After I became suspicious, I laid in bed one morning watching him because he would wake up and grind up the medicine, put it in my G-tube, take a shower, and then get dressed and come back to help me go downstairs. So I laid awake and I watched, and when he got out of the shower and walked by the stand where my meds were, he picked up 2 pink pills and popped them in his mouth. And I said, what are you doing? Just to take my stuff, take my pain medicine. You know, right there's that miserable feeling like this jerk is never going to change. And I'm in a lot of trouble because I'm in my late 40s at that time. I'm disabled. I don't have a face at that time. I can't walk. I can't do anything. My kids are in college. I don't want to bother them. I don't have a mother that can take care of me. I don't have family to go to. I don't want to go to like a home or something. So I think, well, it's, he just needs to get help. He drinks too much. He just needs to get help. And I try to keep my pills away from him. I started giving them to myself. I bought these things on Amazon that have zippers, like a pill safe. It's got a zipper and a combination. He would literally just break the zipper. He didn't care if I knew he was stealing the medicine. Eventually, I got like a big metal container to put it in, and he started doing heroin, apparently. He was already doing meth. I didn't know that. I feel like I'm going to start shaking. I'm glad I decided to record this because I would have put it off because it's so much. I'm going to do some makeup so that I can self-soothe a bit. So, I don't even know where I am. He was stealing my pain medicine. After a couple of years, he was like, oh, well, I got to go out with my buddy. He's got this buddy, Wayne. Oh, by the way, throughout the years, he has these male companions that he spends nights with, and clearly he's got some issues with that also. So I don't know how I just ignored all this stuff, sick. In the name of what I think, trying to be a faithful wife, and I'm really just being ridiculous, not loving myself, So, he just still behaved like a terrible human being the whole time. And he just never felt happy for me. I got better, I was healing. I became a growth coach because I got a growth coach. I had a therapist, but I also wanted a growth coach. I wanted to know how I was going to live the rest of my life. I didn't want to be disabled and taken care of for the rest of my life at the age of 50. I didn't want that. So I got a growth coach, and she helped me so much. That's how I got here, I think. She helped me so much. And I became a coach, and the night that I graduated with my life coaching, he didn't want to attend the virtual life coaching event, stating that life coaching is a scam. He belittled it. I pulled myself up literally from the edge of death and was so proud of myself, and he belittled it because that's how small and twisted he is. That's how evil he is. And, that's where I knew, things really weren't going to work out, and I needed to figure out what to do. So I started doing Burn Beauty, and I love doing Burn Beauty. I wanted to help other people, but I realized I could make a business out of it, and maybe I could heal and return myself to my original status of independence. And I started doing documentaries. People asking for documentaries, and I'm doing that, and I'm loving it. I'm loving everything, and he's still belittling me. Like we did a whole German documentary, and our last name is German, Meisenbach. And I was so proud because his father, is really into all the German culture and stuff. And I was like, wow, he's going to be so proud that we were on RTL News Germany. And don't you know, he didn't even tell his family that we were recording it. And when I asked him, when the documentary came out, I was like, you didn't tell them about it? And he just sat there with his lip sticking out. And that should have been the moment that I thought, okay, you are the guiltiest, piece of what. But, just because you're a jerk doesn't mean you're an attempted unaliver. So I got into therapy. I continued my therapy. And as I started doing TikTok Live, I would tell my story every day. And the more I told my story, the more it didn't make sense, the more it wasn't connecting in my head, the more I would say one thing and see another in my mind. So I said to my therapist, is this real? Is this possible? And she said, oh, yeah, that's more than possible, right? More than possible. It's you know, it happens, especially if you're, the type that suppresses things, which I clearly do. Um, so the memories came back, and I remembered being chased, and everything started to fall into place. And he doesn't deny it. He won't admit it. And if he thinks you're recording him, because as a narcissist, he likes to provoke and record. So he thinks that if you ask him something, you're recording it, but he didn't deny it, and he makes excuses for it. As a matter of fact, like he did it because he was mad. It's just because he was mad. Um, he's a dangerous person. I don't want to look over my shoulder for him for the rest of my life, and I don't want him to harm anybody else, because I guarantee you, he's got some little girlfriend right now that is believing I'm a crazy person and not to listen to me, and she's going to get unalived if she doesn't listen, or somebody's going to get assaulted if they don't do something, if I can't get the attention that I need. And I moved all the way to another coast with the help of a nonprofit that helps survivors of domestic violence, because I come with receipts. I have proof, that this is what it is. And they believe me. I'm on the other coast, but it only takes a few days to drive across and track somebody down, and I don't know what else to do, but I know that speaking out now and recording these videos, I'm at least leaving behind my testimony no matter what happens. I know I've left out a lot of this today. As I started to remember, I told a lot of people. I reached out to domestic violence organizations, and they all told me, don't say anything because he will harm you. Well, I didn't do a very good job of that. I had so much anger that I was just shouting and screaming. I mean, it was crazy. It's called battered woman syndrome. And I called him everything but a child of God. The only name I would ever call him starts with a C and ends with an ucker. And I know y'all are going to be shocked because I don't talk that way, but that's the way it was for the last. He left in May after he had me arrested, claiming that I was the abuser. We're not even going to get into that because it's just typical narcissist. It's like Narcissist 101 to claim to be the victim, and he recorded me screaming and got in my way and kind of pushed me around. I pushed him back. He recorded it, and the police had to arrest me, but I'd never been arrested. I'd never gotten a ticket. They helped me through it. And the judge let me out, no bond, and the prosecutor dismissed because they believed me. They know that he's the abuser. I was able to get a mutual stay-away agreement and alimony that I doubt he'll pay now that I've spoken out. But who cares about the money as long as I can be safe and get justice? But I didn't think I was going to be able to get out. He had me arrested because he knew I remembered. He wanted to discredit me. He didn't want people to believe me, but I think he also knew that he couldn't get away with unaliving me. And I say that because of I know it drives people nuts when you say that instead of the other words, but it has to do with the algorithms and what they hear and such. So I don't want this suppressed. So that's why he had, claimed to have me arrested. He wanted to be like the victim. And you know what? I believe that he believes he is the victim. He doesn't believe that the problem is that he set me on fire. He believes that the problem is I called him a sea ucker repeatedly and screamed at him. He put some kind of tape together and said I was threatening to unalive him. And I remember the night I was threatening to call the police. I was saying, just forget it. I don't care what happens. I don't care if I have anywhere to go. I just need to report you now. And that was so dangerous. I could have gotten myself ended. I was told not to do this. Yet March, April, and May of this year, that's what I was doing. I think it was fortunate that he ended up calling the police, because he tried to be spiteful about it and get like a TPO, and that's what opened me up to being able to get a stay away order against him. And that's also what opened me up to getting him out of the house. He desperately wanted me to stay in the house so he would know where I was, because this is all about control. So he's like, I'll leave. She can stay, and she works from home, and she's disabled. But I was very uncomfortable in the house because it's like being a sitting duck. He knows where you are, and maybe he's not living here, but I was afraid he would come back and burn the house down. I didn't want to sleep upstairs because I thought he would burn it down. It took me a few weeks after he was gone to even go upstairs and just to sleep in a bed, because I'd been sleeping downstairs on the couch for the past year before that. I left the bedroom in May of 2023 because I was afraid to lay beside him. I thought he would hurt me. And we had guest rooms upstairs, but I wanted to be able to hear him coming, so I slept on a recliner for a year, until I got rid of him this year. And there's still so much more to the story. I know I've probably left out important details. Maybe ask me questions and I'll try to respond to them. Because ultimately I got away because I did an ad, and Face Forward International saw me, and they clearly knew that I was a domestic violence survivor, even though I hadn't made that public yet. Just listening to the story, like a lot of people told me that it wasn't an accident, and I refused to listen. I refused to believe it because I thought, well, I remember trying to make that stake, and I know that even though he's not a very good husband, I mean, he wouldn't try to hurt me. He's my husband, and thought I was done crying about it. I don't want to be crying about it. I want to be strong and powerful and like a lioness, So they saw me and they approached me and they made an offer to help me with surgery on my nose, having it repaired so that I actually have nostrils again, and helping me with my eye. And I told them my story, and they knew that I was in danger. So Face Forward International paid to relocate me because it was a money issue. I didn't know how I was going to support myself. And, I make a little bit of money, not a lot. Maybe, I'll have time to be able to make more in social media now. Not time, but just the ability to make more. But they helped me. They're paying for me to live here. They relocated me here. The surgeries are free from these kind doctors in Beverly Hills. And that's how I got away. Somebody helped me. They saw me. They emailed me. And for whatever reason, I just automatically told them, yeah, no, it really wasn't an accident. I'm working on trying to get out. And that's what saved me, just being honest. And I'm grateful. So this is a lot, and I'm going to stop now because I've been rambling for an hour, and I know if you're still watching, you're probably out of patience. So I'm not going to rewatch this video. I'm going to link the first video I made that I haven't rewatched since I recorded it in 2021, and y'all can try to see the parallels between what I said, because I don't really know. You don't have to have a good memory if you're just speaking your truth. I hope you'll subscribe. I'm going to continue on with this series because I think it's important to my safety. And I think it's important to getting justice, because I asked when I was arrested in May for the case to be reopened, and the sergeant, who's a female, told me she would reopen it. And I haven't heard a thing back. I don't know how it will happen, but I know that karma always finds a way. right? I have to have faith in that. So I'm going to head out for the day, take my dog for a walk, try to relax. If this video is a mess, I'm sorry. I just wanted to speak my piece, my truth. And I will be making more videos that are a little more controlled and more well thought out. I love y'all. And just remember that I truly believe that whatever you're going through, this too shall pass.